loving the spontaneity of it all and the uncertainty of it all, more of what we get nowadays. So I'm super excited. I wanted to, first of all, formally welcome each and every one of you. So first of all, I want to, say thank you and welcome to the beloved Boss Lady Success Circle. Okay. A week ago, I asked, could we do this virtually, right? When we saw that we were not going to be able to have our typical monthly meeting one-on-one, and they were real quick to say, yes, let's do it virtually. It'll be perfect. We'll come together, and I want to appreciate that. I'm going to be muting you guys until we can kick things off. So I want to thank the beloved Boss Lady Success Circle for saying yes and letting us come on live and letting us open up all the doors and windows to have these conversations and invite new people into this group, this tribe. And I also want to thank you, ladies, my dear sisters and my friends, what I call my sisters from another mister. Each and every one of you are my colleagues, and we've shared some very personal moments and some ups, some downs, some breakdowns, some breakthroughs. And to be here tonight to, have you share your different perspectives on this particular topic, to me, is like a special treat. So thank you, each of you, for being here. And then also welcome and thank you to all the first-time participants, the people that kind of saw it online, or, just had a feel for the conversation, or were just called to be here tonight. I wanted to share a little bit of my why. Like, why did this come up for me, and why did this come up as a thing? As we were getting all the information about the virus and how big it was, or how uncontrollable it was, right? As all of us, it started to come in as an anxiety, right? Like, I'm out of control. The typical boss lady, right? Like, what can I control? And little by little, all the things that I thought I could still control, when you go down the list, well, I can't do this, but this I can still have a hold on, right? Or I can no longer do this, but this I still have a hold on, right? And every time one other thing was being put out of my list, like my daily schedule, my ability to go outside, all the things that we know. So I realized that part of my anxiety was coming from a place of wanting to contribute, from a place of wanting to do something that would make a difference, that would help us get through this in a better, more open or softer approach. And in that realization was that I said, I put out the intention, what can I do that will help me contribute to the highest good for all, right? And then I set the intention and I went inward, and this was shown to me. Like, this is what you do. You bring people together, share knowledge, you support people, and you meet them where they are. And that's where this idea came from, right? And I also got a message. I thought I had it here with me. I was holding on to it so I can share with you. But I read my cards. Oh, here it is. I definitely want to read to you. So on a daily basis, I kind of go and I do my divination cards and my oracle cards. And about a week ago, I was pulling my card for the day and asking the universe to let me know what my soul needs to know. And this was what I got. It says, endings come in many forms, and now is the time to stop holding on to what must die, so that something better can take its place. Nature's cycles include disease, decay, and even death, and regeneration. Let whatever isn't working in your life die. Don't be afraid to face the facts. There is no need to struggle or grieve. Whatever your query, let it go. You're about to be reborn. So when I received this card, I was, there's definitely a calling for me to surrender, for me to say yes to this process and allow myself to remember who I work for, right? And to me, that made the pivot. That was the big change. When I talk about remembering who I work for and I'm sitting and looking at all the news and all the fear and all the concepts that are being given to us about this, I ask myself, so if I work for the universe, for God, for spirit, am I going to be a person that continues to spread that kind of information? Or in working for the universe, for God, is there a way where I can spread a different type of information? An information that's going to allow us to see what's in this for us, and that's going to allow us to open up to this experience versus close in and hold on. So that's why we're here, ladies. That is the calling that I received and said yes to. And I'm ready for it to be whatever the universe would want it to be during this call. I do want to pre-frame a little bit the conversation. Is that okay with you guys, so that we can put some structure to how we're kind of doing this? I'm going to unmute you so I don't feel like I'm just kind of chatting by myself. There you guys are. And so having said that I'm remembering who I work for, that's one of the things that we're bringing to this table, right? To this table on Zoom. I want us to know that today we're sharing different points of views. We're sharing different perspectives. We're sharing each of your approach to this concept in order to bring diversity to the conversation, in order to bring, a wider perspective for each of us. And we're allowing ourselves to experience this diverse point of view. I invite you guys to, the attendees and even us, to know that the idea here is to maybe stir up some curiosity. Maybe put you in a place where you say, that's interesting, right? Or create a deeper feeling of trust and hope, right? We're not here to put specific points of view or points of experiencing this through your perspective. Like, this is not about driving a specific point of view or changing someone's mindset. This is more about putting topics on the virtual table, right? And letting you guys see it and enjoy the ones that you want. Pick up the ones that you'd like. Don't pick up the ones that you wouldn't, or don't pick up any. Like, it's not about yes or no. It's about yes and, right? So I invite you guys to allow us to give you some yes and concepts. And I'd love for the conversation also to roll in our perspectives. And then last but not least, before I kind of introduce you ladies and start the conversation, is what I'd like to do as a structure is maybe share a little bit about what's been coming up for me, what I've seen as patterns, and what's going on in terms of some sessions with my clients and their fears and their thoughts, and just kind of bring that up. And then formulate some questions for you ladies so we can hear your thoughts on those perspectives. And then ask some questions to each of you so that we can get some ideas of where you're coming from in terms of the needs that we're seeing in the market and the needs that we're seeing in ourselves, in our society, in our lives, right? And then I'd like to open up for some questions. So those of you that are on in the chat listening, please add some questions that you feel would be appropriate as we go through the conversation. And I'll be looking in there. We'll kind of be checking in there and see what questions we can add, And then at the end, I'd like us to leave here with some powerful takeaways that will also be in question format for you to do some self-reflecting, right? And really spend some time on your own after you've gathered the information and kind of taken from this what works for you. Go off and do some reflecting on your own and see what holds true to you and feels true to you. And we'll also end with a beautiful poem that was shared to me by one of my spiritual mentors, okay? So that's the structure. I want to once again thank you, ladies. And I just want to share a little bit of the perspective from which each of you are coming. Cool? Okay. Before we start off some questions. So first of all, I'm doing it in alphabetical order. So Candice Rasa, welcome, love. Thank you. Candice Rasa is an Akasha channel and therapist. She will highlight the evolution of souls from a fear-based, structured place to a flexible, trusting place. So bring us from fear to flexibility and plump, round love, right? That's beautiful. So that'll be the perspective we're going to be sharing from your perspective. We have Wendy Hornan, host of the Histrology podcast, and she will explain how the current astrological cycles and pandemic virus is a drill for humanity. So that's a deep one, right? Talk about how this is like a pattern or something that astrology, meaning history and astrology, has shown us how this is something that was coming, and this is sort of a pattern that we should see. That's going to be super interesting. And then we've got Monica Reyes. Yay, love. Spiritual success strategist will share with us a shift in viewpoint from this is happening to me to this is happening for me. So this is a beautiful concept. And of course, yours truly, Women's Success Catalyst, Patty Ferreira. I'm going to kind of lead the conversation and just I think my role today is going to be devil's advocate. What do you think? I'll be like the one asking the tough questions and then a little bit challenging the perspective and see how we roll. How does that feel? Cool. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things that I know to be true that were probably not 100% in my awareness or in my understanding a week or so ago, right? And one is we're making history, right? Like this is history in the making. There will forever be the before and the after the coronavirus, right? And for me, it feels like such an honor to be on this planet and to be alive today. And those of us that think we will get through this and be the same on the other side, right? Get to see and hear this conversation, right? Because one of the things that I know to be true is that we're never going to be who we were before this pandemic. And that's one of the viewpoints I'd love all of you to answer, right? The other thing that I saw is that this virus has shown us how connected we really are. Like, we have seen the separation of countries and of race and religions and color and sexual preference and all the separations that we've put on ourselves as a society. And here comes corona virus and tears down all those walls in matter of nothingness, right? And shows us and is calling us to recognize how we are one and how we are collective and how through a seamless breath we're able to connect from each other. So that's huge. And then there's the other piece that I've seen that's kind of a little bit of the edge for me, right? This is where I have a little bit of an edge. And as you guys are sharing, I'd love for you to touch upon this. You know, I see us where a lot of our systems have closed down, right? So life does not stop because the world shuts down, right? We have our schools shut down, our churches, our restaurants, they've all shut down. But we're still having to teach our kids at home. So the schools are no longer there, but our kids are learning and being taught, right? The churches are no longer accessible, but we are taking on our rituals at home, meditation, rosary, prayer, all the things that help us spiritually to keep our vibrations up, right? And our jobs have sent us home, and we're still asked to work from home, a lot of us. So one of the things that it's really teaching me is all of these systems can go away, and the key and the things that are fundamental to our values and our way of being, which is teaching our children, which is remaining connected spiritually, which is finding a way to make a living, is still at our access. And it's up to us to figure it out. It's up to us to find ways of doing it. So I just wanted to kind of put out there the three things that have really kind of been the awareness, right? And having said that, I will have my first question. And I think I want my first question to go to Wendy, because Wendy talks about how astrology, right, our past, and astrology is showing us that this is a drill, like an exercise, like we're on our first run. So I'd like you to share with us your thoughts around that. What do you think is going to be why do you think this is happening? Let's keep it really simple. Why do you think this is happening, Wendy? Let me see here.
Okay, I got it. All right. Well, so I will say that from observing the cycles, not that I know why it's happening, like I'm tapped in, I have a direct line, but just from looking at the cycles, I would say that when we are focusing on the theme of boundaries, which you brought up when you were talking about the virus in your intro, that when we look back on the past as it relates to America, and this is a country that was founded on immigrants, we have a theme that is, about how we are the mother country and we accept people. And not that it hasn't been with its problems and all of that, but when we think about boundaries and what's happening globally in the world, we have a crisis around the world about people putting up walls. People are trying to escape wars, and there's nowhere for them to go. And nobody wants certain people to come into their country because of all of the problems that it could bring and the challenges. So the way that we often find or define safety is by creating a boundary. And I always think of it this way. When we think about how we're all connected, and you think the ocean is connected to this cycle, water, right? Everything, Neptune, it's Neptune focused, and Neptune is in Pisces right now. So it's about compassion and connection. That if we are not aware, like if we are afraid of being in it all, then we create boundaries often out of fear. And we create tribes as a reaction. So that's a way of creating boundaries. So one of the first challenges that becomes obvious, and you brought it up in the introduction, is that the virus, there is no boundaries, right? If we don't get sick, we can help someone else get sick. We don't know we're carrying it. So it immediately takes that out of it. So you would think, and this is where the beginning of the drill thing comes in, is that like, whoa, like we're all responsible for each other. We're all connected. And yet that is not exactly what is happening at all. And that is for everyone that is observing this to look at and say, well, actually, what does it mean to be connected? There's a lot more to it than just, being like flexible and tolerant of other people. We're called to understand that on a much deeper level. And this is an example of, it might be life or death for all of humanity. I don't think that's the case with this virus. That's why I'm saying it's a drill, but it is harming people and people are dying. So
I love how you say that the question here is, what does it mean to be connected? Right? What does it mean to be connected? So what I'm hearing you say, if I can reflect back, and girls, feel free to come on in if you've picked up another breadcrumb, a thread around what Wendy shared. But what I'm hearing you say is we're on exercise mode. We are in training for the realization that we are all one, for the realization of the power that we can have once we accept that we are one. And slowly but surely, the universe is showing us ways in which that is happening. And as we awaken to that realization, we're elevating and we're all on the ride. It's just about which, how and when we awaken to that reality. And this question is for, let's do it for Candace. Candace, would awakening to this reality be what you're talking about in terms of going from that fear to maybe the love process? Is that part of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, in the Akashic record is, this powerful wisdom around the history of our soul, a different language perhaps than astrology, but all really in alignment with what we're seeing on the planet. Mm-hmm. And in the Akasha, there's this connection of we are having an excavation happen here, perhaps triggered by Neptune, right? Rising to the surface. And the excavation is the density of the fear or the scarcity or the lack or the control or the ego or the anger that is relevant within our personal karma. And that is alive and well, thank you to coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And as that arises, we have this beautiful opportunity to engage that and to work with that energy, to arrive at the collective, at the, this we're doing this as a world, which is something the Akasha has acknowledged. We're doing this as a world. That means something. Mm-hmm. And so that arrival to the we can take us to a greater place of interconnectedness, of trust and faith, of supporting one another. There's this question, right? It's like, here's the question. It's like, if I give or I do for someone else, I might lose or be harmed. And yet the reframe in the Akasha is like, if I give or do or help someone else, we are having more, we are supported, we are connected, we are stronger, we are better. So it's going from a perspective of I to a perspective of we, and going there, which is a fifth dimensional thing, which I can talk about later. I don't want to overwhelm folks, but we're going there because we're moving through our interpersonal karma. We're going through the fear or the anger or whatever is showing up for you. We have the opportunity to kind of make it to that space. And this is the exciting news about this virus, is that we're arriving to this consciousness now.
So this is beautiful. The way you put it almost makes me feel like it's okay to be in fear. It's okay to say yes to fear and then recognize it and know that it's a reality. That's why we're here anyway, and you get to move upwards and forwards from that place.
Totally. Right? Yes. And I'd love to just add that the Akasha would say, watch out for these two things. When your personal karma arises, shall we say, like it's not even like when it arises, like it's probably already arrived in everyone already. But watch out for these two things. One, numbing and disconnect. And two, projection. I'm angry because you took all the toilet paper.
Yeah.
Right? I'm angry because within my soul is this fear that I'm not okay and that somebody can take something away from me. And that's scary.
Yeah.
And I can't hold space for that. So I'm going to blame you, toilet paper person.
And it's beautiful that you say that. The personal karma piece, I want to tap on that a little bit more because, my personal karma, right? My personal karma, I have identified as one of them to be loneliness, right? Being by myself. And here it is. I am in I've decided to go into physical distancing, right? The social distancing kind of is different in my perspective, but physical distancing. My kids are older. They're all taking care of their kids and their lives and their homes. And that's the kind of edge for me, right? That's the charge. Like, oh my God, here I am in my apartment by myself, my personal karma. And that's what I get to work through in this process.
Yes.
The other pieces of like lack may not be the thing that touches me. So the question is, what's the thing? Where's the density for you? Where's the personal karma for you, right? And then the idea that I hear you saying is we get to recognize it and become aware of it and then work through it. And I want to bring Monica into the conversation now, because this is when it kind of starts to sound like, yeah, this could be happening for me, you know, kicking and screaming. But let's tell us, Monica, your concept of this is not happening to us, but happening for us. Is this kind of what it's about?
Absolutely. You know, and what you were mentioning, Candace, of that, like blaming and shaming, that's the first level of spiritual growth, you know. So at that point, we don't realize that, you know, that you're this amazing, magnificent creator. You're living in the 3-dimensional world. You don't yet realize, or haven't really awoken to the fact that you have this intelligence within you, that you're all connected, that you're a part of this oneness, which is the shift that I believe is happening. What I would love to hear, Wendy, after I get through this, is to hear about, because I watched an interview, Wendy, where you spoke about the 3 cycles that we're going through, which I feel like are so relevant to what the conversation that we're having right now. And you know, one of the cycles is the 4,000-year cycle of the masculine that we're leaving right now. And, you know, and so that is also the transition that Candace referred to, of the whether it's 3D to 5D, the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, you know, this transition of the shifting of consciousness. And, you know, and so it's the masculine to the feminine. We're leaving this 4,000-year cycle and into this 4,000 cycle of the feminine intelligence, which is so perfect because this coronavirus is stopping us from hustling. It's stopping us from driving. It's stopping us from going. It's slowing us down. We're now having to rest, to be, to pause, which is all about the feminine, you know. And then there's another cycle that I heard you mention about the moving into compassion and oneness. And again, even though we're not yet seeing it, I'm sensing it. I'm sensing like the feeling of the fact that this virus is now all of a sudden bringing into our face that gender is not an issue, race is not an issue, where, you know, it's not about that. We're all biological humans, and it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, what your status is, you can still get infected because of the lack of these boundaries now, you know. So it's really leveling this playing field for us in a way to, like, now all of a sudden starting to see us all as these biological humans. I also believe, Candace, that you're right. I feel like the sense that I got was that the earth is clearing house, you know, and the vision I saw was the vision of cutting out the fat. If we are in essence shifting consciousness, then, you know, what it would seem like is you'd have to cut out maybe the ones that are kind of bringing it down. What I also found was interesting was that the coronavirus was hitting the 4th chakra. It was the lungs, the respiratory system, which has to do with the spiritual awakening, moving from me to we. Again, completely aligned with the cycles, completely aligned with where we're going with compassion and oneness. So in essence, this is, you know, that is the evidence that I keep holding on to for me, that remembering that this is happening for us. And on an individual microcosm level, and the everyday, you know, the fear that you're feeling, the emotions that you're feeling currently, and it's the same with or without the virus. You know, when a triggering event shows up in your life, you have the choice to be with whatever you're feeling, or either the choice to look away, or the choice to numb, or the choice to disconnect, and, you know, or you project. But when we're moving from this first level of spiritual growth to the second of realizing that we are this manifestor, now all of a sudden you start to take responsibility. You start to see this, whatever's showing up in your life, in your awareness, these people, the triggering events, as why did I create this? What within me created this? And now you can pinpoint and see life as more of a response. And the work is moving, you know, where this emotional charge of what you're experiencing, that's where you're moving. And we're moving from that emotional charge to neutrality, because when you're neutral, then this no longer bothers you, and you will actually see a shift in the response in your physical reality. That's when you know that you've reconnected, you've integrated, you've done the work. So this event is actually, it's happening for us. It's forcing us to deal with the fear, forcing us to deal with the emotions that we probably pushed away. And it's actually going to help you, because when you don't deal with this bound up, stagnant energy, it becomes a physical manifestation anyway. We get cancer, we get disease, we get conditions. So this is helping. This is cleaning out. It's helping. So that's my take.
I totally get it. You said a lot there. There's a lot there, and I want to start to kind of bring it apart a little bit, because the first piece that resonated with me when I heard it slow and with the ability to integrate it was that this is a reorganization, right? And the way I envisioned it was, I love interior decorating, and sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I want to redo this room. And I want it to feel differently, or it's no longer, maybe I don't know if I want it to feel differently. Maybe I just know that it's no longer making me feel the way I want it to make me feel. So the first thing I do is I start to decide, okay, what am I keeping? What am I giving away? What am I getting rid of, right? And I've already looked at kind of a vision of what I want it to be like, but I'm in this reorganization process. And in the middle of the reorganization process, I look at the room and it looks like a mess, right? You can't see any longer what it was, and you still can't see what I have as a vision, right? So what I hear in my mind and what I could understand in my head is, we're in that space right now, right? We're in the place where we're in a reorganization, and we're no longer what we were, and not yet where we think we're going to go, right? So in this process, when I'm in this process, there's panic. There's like, oh my God, here's this mess. It's too much. I'm in overwhelm. And that is the feeling I want to tap into in this moment of reorganization, in this moment of being in the middle of it. Candace, can you share with us what can we do with the collective panic that we're feeling?
Yeah, so great question. And what comes up, when I lean into that question, is that as much as we feel safe and courageous and willing to do is to embrace as much of that sacred feminine energy as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're moving there. We are forced by this virus to operate outside of structure, of rigidity, of clarity, of boxes, of compartments, of expectations. So we've spoken about this fear that's coming up, and this density, and perhaps whatever that personal karma is, but we're structurally being asked to release some of the ways we go about doing things. And so if we are to look at a messy room in the way you described that example and say, I'm in chaos and there's a collective energy here around that. If I were to say, I have to grip this and I need to put this on a schedule, and you miss a meal and you're up till 3 a.m. and you still can't make sense of all the boxes, you feel more tired, you're all run down, you're not really accomplishing much, you're running on a lower sort of energy level. If we embrace the 5D, and I'd say give it a reach. That's going to be like a t-shirt I wear during this time. Give it a little reach. Like I can't really, I said to my husband the other day, I said, how can I hold space for suffering people? I'm a suffering person right now. And he said, that's exactly why you hold space for suffering people, right? And so I give it a reach. See, I went to my akashic record. That's what they said. They said, where can you go? You know what? I can go for compassion. I can go for softness. I'm going to reach into that. So when our jobs are being canceled, we have to homeschool our kids. The energy, the knee-jerk reaction might be the structured, rigid way. Is that the most helpful way? The lean-in opportunity here is reach for the fifth dimensional expression, the sacred feminine expression, the softness, the expansion, the trust, the faith, I'm going to be flexible here. I'm going to throw all the cards up in the air. A good practice might be picking up your laundry basket or a back of cards and just tossing them up in your house and being like, look at this. I'm going to practice just throwing it up in the air and being crazy and flexible and fun and light and picking it up as I do. Maybe that's all a practice we can take home after this call. Who knows?
So what I'm hearing you say is, when in doubt, when in fear, when in uncertainty, when in charge, when triggered, when all of it, we could ask ourselves, what would the feminine do? And maybe
Sure.
have a list of the things that we know to be true about the feminine, the sacred feminine, right? And I know that sounds easier said than done.
Sure.
But I love that you've given us a way to step into love, right? To step into love. And you've given us permission. Again, part of what we're doing here is saying all of it is real. The fear, the uncertainty, the charge, the triggering, the numbing, the coping by buying toilet paper. It's all real. Like, there's no need to make excuses for that. It's about, okay, this is who I am, this is where I am, and now what would the feminine do, right? Like in my case of the being alone, what I'm hearing is self-care. Becomes the way to move forward with that. So that's beautiful. I appreciate that. I wanna take a minute and come back to Monica real quick, because I heard you say taking ownership and taking responsibility, right? Yeah, that's a good one. I want you to expand on that, because that's a little bit like, it's not easy. It's easier for us to go into pity. It's easier for us to go into blame. It's easier for us to say, oh, look at those people that sent this thing over here. All the things that we know is easier. So share a little bit what it looks like to take responsibility and ownership, and why.
It's funny that you say it's easier, because is it easier?
Yeah, good question.
Once you go on the other side, it isn't easier, because it doesn't feel good. So what I mean by ownership and responsibility is realizing that everything in your awareness, so back it up. It's been proven by quantum physics that we observe things into reality, right? We've thousands of experiments, Einstein being one of the experimentors, where it's been shown that we observe things in reality, where they figured out that depending on who was doing the observation and who was doing the actual experiment, altered the outcome of the experiments. Yeah. And so they were able to prove it. Now that unfortunately, it's not as mainstream. You can hear a lot about manifesting, and I believe that's still very layer. I think we haven't really dove into the power of this that we have as the creators. But that's in essence what it is the fact that we are creating life as we know it. And so when you hear manifestation, you mostly hear it as I want something, so I bring a law of attraction. It's usually around things. It's about love. It's about desires. But what we forget is that we're 24/7 manifesting. This entire reality is one big manifestation. This body is a manifestation. Everything is a co-creation. We're co-creating as a collective. We're co-creating as a universe. As individuals, we are the universe becoming aware of itself. So when something comes in, when someone comes in, even, I'm going to use that example because that's the hardest one to take responsibility for. Someone comes in and they're not pleasant, let's say, and so what we normally do is why are you being this way? Shame on you. You should be social distancing. What are you doing? Right? It's a lot of pointing fingers. Yeah. And so that keeps you in that life is happening to me. I'm a victim to life. I have no control over what's happening, and that's a very powerless place to be. Now, when you start to awaken to the idea that you are this manifester, and then you expand into the idea that you are manifesting 24/7, everything, including the way people show up. So we're all energy, 100% vibration, frequency. And so our energy and what we believe and our feelings and our thought, the way that we create distorts the energetic of someone else. And so we can create a reality where we actually affect and compel somebody to show up in a certain way. And so as creators, we then take responsibility for the way that this person is showing up. Yes. We take responsibility for the fact that Corona is here, so we've co-created it. And it's hard because it hurts. It's like, man, I created that shit. I created those problems. I created those challenges. That is what happens at first until you realize, oh, I created that. Wow, yeah. I am powerful. And then that's where it flips. That's when you realize, okay, so what else can I create? You know, and that's where the responsibility doesn't hurt so much, because, and that's where you're like, it's like we belong, we're one. And, you know, there's no longer that blame. It's like, why did I compel you to show up? And the Ho'oponopono is a beautiful mantra that you can use in that specific space of like, you know, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I use it all the time with that, because that's the idea, is like taking responsibility for the way someone shows up. Like, I am sorry that I compelled you to show up like a jerk. You know, please forgive me for not seeing you in, you know, your divinity and not, you know, and judging you. Thank you for showing me where I still have places to grow, and I love you, because when I love you, I love myself. Like, it's really, you know, honoring the mirror and the response and our creative ability, which is, you know, sacred.
Yes. You've just tapped into one of my favorite exercises, and what has, you know, what allows me to get past a lot of the moments in my life. And the piece that I want to highlight about what you're saying is something that my spiritual mentor, Nani Lea, has taught us, right? Monica and I are in that group together, and it's, you know, how I see it, so it becomes. How I see it, so it becomes. So what you're saying in essence is we are, we can very much understand that we get to take responsibility and ownership for this experience, because as we see it, so the experience becomes. And each of our lenses, each of our thoughts or limitations or approach or perspectives are going to influence that which we experience. And in that ability, in that reality, is where we are co-creators, and where it's happening for us, right? Because it's something that is coming to us as a reflection of who we already are.
Yes, and I want to, and taking it just one little step further, and the way to do that, what I've realized is just with this one statement, is changing the relationship that we have with the thing that we want to change, changing with the relationship with the piece of reality we want to shift. So we don't like the coronavirus. So how do we feel about it? Are we afraid of it? Do we love it? Right? And so the sooner we can change our relationship with the coronavirus itself, the sooner I believe that reality will change, which is why every morning I've been sending the coronavirus love. I mean, it's part of the universe. It's part of nature. It's actually connected to us, you know, and we see it as this monster coming in, this invasive species, but it's actually a part of us. And the sooner that we, you know, again, take responsibility, acceptance, and then appreciation in some way, because there have been gifts, and it's necessary, it's on purpose, the universe makes no mistakes, and there's that trust and faith factor there.
That's beautiful. I'm loving this. I want to, we're a little bit, you know, we're at 7:47, but I want to touch on the cycles you mentioned with Wendy. I'd love to ground the 3 cycles, right? And if we can, in a very short format, understand what are the 3 cycles that are coming together that have created this. And then I'd like to understand, and I'm putting this out there because I'm not writing it down, you guys can remind me, what is on the other side of this for us? What do you think is on the other side of this for us, besides what we've already touched on? So Wendy, please, what's the conglomeration of this?
Yeah. So this is such a simple overview, but I'm going to try to keep it really simple. And I think in listening to everybody and all the awesome, unique perspectives and ways of looking at our experience, that what astrology does when we look at the bigger cycles, it gives like a macro perspective of what is changing, right? So everything is changing in nature all the time. And Monica brought up this 4,000-year cycle that has to do with an asteroid, that the last 4,000 years have been focused on patriarchal systems. And in 2011, it shifted into a feminine focus. And when we think about a feminine focus globally, right, that's femininity. And then when we look at individuals' charts and their experience as an individual, the way you would do self-care like when you were talking about like, well, what can I do to serve my femininity might be different than every other woman, because part of the feminine uniqueness is it has its own expression. So I'm just saying that because there's the big picture role of it, and then it's understanding our own expression of what that is within the context of something bigger, which is why the connectedness is so important in all of these three stages. So we have that. So we have this. So when Candace was talking about like the density and the fear, we have Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto is about transformation and getting rid of things that no longer serve us. I think Monica said like getting rid of the fat or just different things. And in the sign of Capricorn, this is about system structure. Pluto's about wealth. Capricorn's about government. So as an overview, we look around the world and America is going through its own pains. And this is, we're at a repeat cycle of 248 years for America. But around the world, we're looking at how are governments handling their power? How are they utilizing resources? How are the systems working? So the virus comes along and it shows us that our systems are not working very well in America right now, and they're working better in some places and not so good in other places. And then when we think about self-responsibility, what like that also would affect each of us differently. So some people in their chart with Pluto and Capricorn, I've been doing readings for people, and so it plays out in different ways. So somebody might be going through a part of their life where they actually have to take responsibility and understand what are the systems that they learned that don't serve them as it relates to family, or in terms of how they handle money, or in terms of how they do a partnership, right? And so it has to do with power, structure, and boundaries, and how do those operate for the individual. So these cycles are huge themes that we all are in, and then our karma, our way of processing them is based on our own individual pattern. And so those are like, so all of these are awesome tools that we all offer to help gain insights into how that works within ourselves and what it means, right? So we have the governmental piece. We have, when I opened in the conversation with you about the connectedness, the tolerance, the Neptune in Pisces, this cycle has to do with the femininity and rights, that all people have rights. So when we look at what are the structures that are working and what are the structures that are not working. So just a real quick example, and this isn't, I'm just telling a story, it's not a political position, but in Iran, they are having a horrible time with the coronavirus, and they can't get any help. They don't have medical supplies because the US government sanctioned them because somebody tore up all the agreements. And so that would be an example, not that it's my responsibility or each one of ours, but to look at, well, wait a minute. We have global themes that are affecting all of us. And would there be another way to navigate some of these things where you actually create more connection rather than boundaries and walls, right? That actually end up harming everybody. And with the virus, that actually could harm more people, right? And so, and then the last cycle, unless you want me to stop, because that's
no, give us the last cycle.
All right, so the last one real quick is the planet Uranus in Taurus. So Taurus is all about the earth, gardening, food, and nurturing, and Uranus is about sudden change. So the cycle that we're in, the last time we had this cycle, we had drought. It kicked off the beginning. It was just pre-World War II. The economy was going down. And so it has to do with how do we utilize and take care of ourselves. And Uranus is also, it's about breakthroughs and inventions. So we're seeing new ways of doing gardening, new ways of eating, new ways of, solving problems. Uranus rules the internet. So like we are communicating and creating new systems to find ways to utilize that. And it also is money. It has to do with like the value of things. So we're looking at banking systems, which is also Pluto and Capricorn. So anyway, that's a lot. But each of those affects each one of us in a different way.
Right. And it is a lot. And what it says to me is what we kind of started the conversation with is we are not going back to the way things were.
No, you can't. Yeah.
We can't. There is just no way. We've already seen too much. We've already experienced too much. We already know too much. And there are these cycles that are actually guiding us in the direction of, seeing things differently, our systems being tested and crumbling, right? Some of it is already a fact. We know that our hospitals cannot support us, right? And these are some of the questions that we have. And the connectedness piece is huge for me, right? Because
yes,
when you hear, what's happening in a place like Iran, and this is a virus, and that if we're not all having access to the attention and the support and the care, we're just creating a vicious cycle, right? So the call right now is for us to pray for this continued connectedness and for the boundaries and the lines to be brought back together again, right? Instead of the separation and the fragmentation, for us to find ways in which we could meet others where they are and where they need, right? And that's feminine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also like one of the ways that I frame the cycles is thinking of it as a context of experience and learning as we're evolving. So, we had the Spanish flu, right? And so we've had Ebola, we've had different experiences where we could look at them and say, gee, how did we all respond? And then this ties into the accountability piece, and the responsibility is to say, I'm not president, you're not president. There's certain things that we don't have control over, but we do have control over holding ourselves and others accountable for the agreements that are made. So when we choose not to be involved, and not that everyone has to show up the same way, that's what I'm saying, right? Some people, it might be teaching your family, your children, how to honor their agreements and be responsible, and then you're doing your role as part of the bigger cycle. It may be that if you're a community activist and there's corruption going on in your local government, that you go to city meetings and you hold people accountable, and you may not always win, but you're always on the side of integrity and doing what is the right thing to do based on what your role is, right? So I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but so all of us have our areas and our specific places where we can stand up. And all of us, in many cases, we almost do, but don't quite. And so when that happens for all kinds of reasons, that's where collectively we're falling short. And that's why we have a virus, so that we can all start to say, okay, I'm using that. I hate to say that that's why we have the virus, because I'm not sure about that philosophically. I'm just not sure. I don't know, but I know that it's definitely allowing us all to step up and look at where we are and where do we really want to be, and what would it take to be there.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And yeah, we don't know. So what I want to do, I have a personal question that I want to ask each of you, but and I would like to end with that and the poem that I want to share with everyone. So I understand that we're going to be at an hour. And for those of you that can stay a little bit longer, please definitely do so. We'll be finished within the next 10 to 15 minutes. But I want to kind of bring it full circle and hear from the Akasha, Candace, what the Akasha understands the future after the virus.
Yeah. So the power of what Monica was really leaning into around that sort of personal accountability is where many of us are. And going back to yes, and we're reaching through to these larger patterns that Wendy's talking about in terms of the cycles and the shifts that we're being called to are clearly happening internally and through to our community, to our family, the way Wendy was speaking. And as that process happens, I mean, I have, you know, the most beautiful image of this planet that we're living on that involves, you know, community engagement, that involves world government, that involves restructured institutions like education, finance, and businesses. And it's going to happen because of the people right now who are reaching a hand to their neighbor. It's not going to happen by the government.
Wow.
And so the big message in the Akash about this time and where we're headed, which is already written, how we get there, how much suffering, how much dragging, well, that's up to us. But when we get there, right, and I hope to live to see that day, will be a place that happens because we are reaching across our heart center.
Yes.
In this time, it's really important to go from this, if I give, going back to if I give, I have less, versus if I give, we have more. So important. And if that's not the reach you can make right now, it's okay. We honor you and love you with where you are in your personal accountability. And that process is written, right, in your contract. However, reaching to a neighbor, reaching out to a friend, giving some toilet paper, sending a ho'oponopono, supporting a local small business, patting the back energetically, maybe physically, of a healthcare worker who's in the field. Now is the time where the structures and the grassroots work take us to the other side of this. And it's a beautiful place. And the children who are here now are going to build it. And the advocates who are here now are breaking it down. It's a powerful process. And I'm just so grateful to be here to witness it.
Yeah.
Front row seat, baby.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I love it because it's so inspiring and so beautiful to hear that we are in the front lines of this process, right? And you know, there's two things I want you ladies to do. Okay, so you talked about it being about love, right? And fear and love cannot exist together. You talked about it being about being in the light, right? And there can't be darkness where there is light, right? And you talked about giving and holding others and hearing and having space for someone in the energetic level that they are, or in the emotional state that they may be. So what I am feeling into is the reality that we are going to be on the other side of this with a much more beautiful experience and world to look forward to. And I want to hear personally the energetic that you're going to bring to the rest of these weeks in order for your story on the other side of this to be the story that you want it to be, right? We all get to choose today. We all get to choose in this moment. What is the story that I want to be able to tell about me in this experience, right? And I'd love to hear from each of you what that story is. And once you tell us the story, also share how you're giving more in the next couple of weeks, because I know all of us have different ways in which we're giving more. So I'm gonna have Monica go first, and let me know if you need clarification on the question, but I think.
Okay, so what's the new story that I'm building? Like my new normal, basically.
Yeah, like what's your new normal? Or on the other side of this, if someone asked you, like your grandchild, right, years from now said, Grandma, you were there during the coronavirus. How were you? How did you do it? What did you do differently, right? What is that story you want to be able to tell them about who you were in this experience?
And I just want to say, you know, what an exciting time to be alive. So honored, you know, that we were chosen. We chose to be a part of this huge transformation, this shift, this wave that's happening. Like, that goes for all of you, you know, which is why I feel like it's such a call for, if you're feeling even the call of leadership, like, you know, listen. So for me, I feel like my new story, what I'm doing is, for me, the most valuable thing for me right now is my vibration. It's how I am feeling, how I'm experiencing reality on a moment-to-moment basis. It's being conscious and being intentional. And so that for me is because as this creator, being so careful, you know, and I've been going through this purification process for some time already. I stopped eating meat more than a year ago. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped, you know, dairy, eggs. Like, it just naturally, this is just what my body wanted. And I'm feeling like now I'm realizing why, because it's all vibration. You know, it's like I'm just being led to this place of, you know, keeping this vibration. So I think that's what I'm doing. And that means compassion. That means, you know, connection. That means not holding back on love. That means serving from pure contribution. That means that I might be afraid. I mean, I woke up in fear yesterday, and I had to really sit and be with, which for all of you that are feeling this fear, what helped me was deep acceptance. Like, I might lose loved ones here. I might lose my husband. I might lose my parents. And really feeling the grief of that and going through it, not like batting it away, like, no, this is impossible. Like, yes, this could happen. And waking up in peace and waking up and like, okay, so now what, you know? And so deep acceptance, having fun and enjoying this journey, you know, like, what choice do we have? Like, you know, we're creators, but we're not in control. We've got this collective consciousness happening too. And so, you know, it's like, it's coming from the inside out, and also enjoying the journey, coming from curiosity. And so what I'm hoping to see on the other side is like everything that I've dreamed and hoped for, which is where we love each other. We belong to each other. Your problems are my problems. Your children are my children, you know, where the earth is sacred, where we are, you know, where women are sacred, you know, spaces are sacred. And we're, you know, we are truly in that space of awakening, where we realize the magnificence that we really are, and we aren't afraid to be human, you know. So being able to do the both and giving each other space to be able to. And the way that I'm giving back is I have a weekly Tuesday night connection circle. So we're going to be going deeper. So you heard Wendy today. And so we're going to be going deeper into what she said. And I'm going to be hosting a guest every Tuesday night on Zoom, and I'm going to Facebook Live it now that I saw how awesome this works. So come with questions, because I'm excited to dig deeper and to see how we can really even to make some even more connections here. But thank you so much.
I love this. And I love that you mentioned how you woke up in fear. That happened to me this morning. I had not felt a real deep level of just like the collective fear. And this morning when I woke up, it took me by surprise. Just one video that someone sent me completely took me by surprise. And it was gratitude and surrender that got me back into a state of upwards and forwards, you know. So thank you, Monica Reyes. You're awesome. Put on the chat your connection, right? So your Facebook page and how people can get in touch with you so that they can pick that up. Don't go anywhere. We're going to read the poem, but I want to hear next let's do Candace, since we have you here. Do you have the question?
Yes, I think I do. Yeah, and it's been something that I'm in inquiry with, right? That I'm deepening, certainly during this time. And it's really this ability for me to hold space for my own suffering and for the suffering of people that I interact with the deepest level of reverence and trust, and without any judgment. I mean, that is a goal that I'm just constantly in presence with, because suffering shows up in many ways, and it rarely shows up in a vulnerable, raw, open-hearted way. Sometimes it shows up as aggression, and sometimes it shows up as resistance and avoidance and disconnection. And to love and be trusting and to be present for myself when I'm in that place is not easy. And to do that for people is not easy. And that's the call that I'm deepening during this time, that I'm challenging myself to show up in that way. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to bring that forward for me. I think this idea of working towards equanimity and easefulness and acceptance of this life is really a place of invincibility, that we can trust all, that we can be in a dance or a flow with faith and know that what is happening to us is meant for us. Thank you, universe. Yeah. And thank you, is a place that I want to fully be in and really stay in practice with and keep deepening. So that's the commitment I'm making. And as a result of that, I'm opening up for those who are interested to understand really akashic perspectives, timelines, and how akashic information can unlock and help folks understand their personal density or karma, or that personal accountability that Monica was talking about. I'm going to be opening spaces for group conversations where I'm channeling the Akashic record. And there is an event I'm hosting next Tuesday, which happens to be the new moon. I didn't know that, but maybe I did on some level, on the 24th. And that's going to be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And it'll be also Facebook Live, recorded, and then also reshared. But what I'll be doing there is talking about global unease and Akashic wisdom on deepening trust. And it'll involve an entire list of specific supportive, nourishing tips that have been coming out of the Akasha. So things like, they've told me, by the way, like sun is the most powerful healing force beyond love and connection, of course, during this time. Get in the sun and breathe it in. So I'm just going to teach a meditation that was channeled recently around connecting to the sun, which you can do in your house. You don't have to be outside, but you can just be somewhere where there's sunlight. And that's one of those things that will kind of bring forward. Of course, we'll bring forward that collectivism energy, as well as the working with the individual karma that's present. And I'm going to hold a ton of space in that sort of call for Q&A. So you can bring your tough questions, your emotional questions, your scary questions, and I will trust the Akasha to come through real time and provide that information. So if you have something big in your heart or something that you just want to pick apart, I want to be able to hold that space without judgment and with total faith. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that. Thank you, Candace. I'm already signed up for both of the events. I talked with Monica last night on her Tuesday evening calls. I'm signed up for both of them next week. I'm loving the way you guys have managed the timing so that we can be there for both. 11:30 gives us the opportunity to start our day. Yours is around 7 o'clock, right, Monica? So it gives us the opportunity to end 6 o'clock. So it gives us the opportunity to end the day. Do me a favor, Candace, put your information on the chat box so that people could reach out. I love the karmic density piece, the what we talked about, our personal karma. That's something that speaks to my heart and is where my work is on a daily basis. So thank you for that. And Wendy, here we are.
Yeah.
With your question, with your answer, rather.
I am. For some reason, I have been feeling very conscious of what people need, but not like in an empathic way that I know, like Candace feels everything. But I think I have older parents that are vulnerable and I can't be near them. They're far away. And then we have good friends that are nearby that are much older. So both my husband and I offer to help and do things for other neighbors. And then in my work and where I'm going in my work with people and businesses is taking the framework of how everything is changing, and in my retreat models, working with business leaders or people who have a vision of where they want to go and integrating their plan using the cycles as they exist. And the innovative things that are happening in those conversations and in the work we're doing has just been great. And then for my like giving back piece, I started really working with different people in the community, really focusing on inclusion, because there's where I live in Louisiana, there's a lot of there's not as much inclusion as I wish there was naturally. And so I've been meeting other people in the community. And so we did our first luncheon and we had 25 people with a very diverse group. And I was able to pull in some elements of the astrology and the conversation and create a lot of interaction around themes that have to do with femininity and why women have a hard time expressing their voice. And it was really interesting. And so I'm going to be doing more than that. And now because of the virus, I'm going to take it online. And so I don't have a date set up. I do have, if people are interested, they can go to my website and say, sign up for my email. And it says, are you interested in doing this? And I'll let you know when they're going to be on. And they'll be free, and I will be talking about specific themes and have time for questions and things like that. So that's what I'm doing.
I love it. I love all of it. And, we've had our sessions and they have really brought some light to what this stage of my life is all about. So yes, Wendy, share your information on the chat. I want to leave everyone with a couple of questions for yourself that you could reflect on. What story do you want to tell your loved ones on the other side of this? And the question is, we get to tell a story of fear or a story of love. And the way that we walk through this experience is going to, as Monica said, is going to create the experience. So I'd like you to reflect and tell yourself, what's the story I'd like to be able to tell on the other side? What do I choose to show up as, right? And one of the things, the other question that will lead to the outcome, to the story, is what's the energy that you are, the energetic that you are nurturing right now, right? It's the energy, one of my mentors says, the energy from which you create something defines the energy of what you create. So what is the energy that you're going to say yes to? For me, it's gratitude, it's surrender. It's an energy of giving and just being generous with all that I have. So that's the energetic, that question. And then what can you do now that will help you on the other side of this? What can you do now that will help you on the other side of this? Who could you start to become, right? What can you innovate? How can you do something different? I am on Facebook Live, guys. I would have never attempted to do this if it weren't from this experience, from this desire to give back, from this download to create this conversation. And it's already something that is part of me because I did it, good, bad, or otherwise, right? So what is it that you want to do now that will help you when you're on the other side of this? Those are the questions. And before we go, I want to read you this poem, okay? It's a beautiful writing that illustrates the beauty of being with all of this, right? And it's, dear one, you who are taking as much as you can from the supermarket shelves to ease your fears, I love you. You who deny what is happening and think this is an evil plot to control the masses, hoping it will all go away when you open your eyes, I love you. You who spend endless hours in the hospital helping others without rest, I love you. You who don't really care about safety and hygiene and keep doing whatever you were doing before, coughing mindlessly and touching the bread loaves in front of me with your bare hands like a child, I love you. You who ease your feelings by preaching to others with your long sermon of how they should go about their life in this moment, as if you own the truth, I love you. You with your stories of a new shift in conscious, certain that those who will die are the ones who did not shift, I love you. You who think what is happening will bring out the worst in all of us, I love you. You who think what is happening will bring out the best in all of us, I love you. You who suffer in silence, unable to bear the pain of your own thoughts, as you sit alone, I love you. You who are rejoicing in the comfort of your yoga mat because you have found a way to be in your pain, I love you. You who are profiting from the pain of others, I love you. You who are losing it all from the uncertainty of this moment, I love you. You who now have more time to stay with your family, I love you. You who have no family, I love you. You who write words of comfort to ease your pain, I love you. You who helps others to help yourself in this moment, I love you. You who close yourself in fearing death and pain and life on your own wounded heart, I love you. You who selflessly put yourself in service with others in need, I love you. You who can feel the pain of others, I love you. You who cannot feel the pain of others, I love you. You who think you know better in these moments, I love you. You who think you know nothing in these moments, I love you. You who keep an open heart to change and are able to sit with the not knowing, I love you. I am all of you. I have you all in me, and I love you. I'll share that with you guys on the chat so you can share it. I love you. We will be doing this. My way of giving back is to do this on a weekly basis. I'm going to be sharing the information for next Wednesday. And each session is going to be different. This has been a panel format. Next Wednesday could be a Q&A, or maybe we'll gather some stories from some of the experiences. We will be alternating and also bringing in more of our boss ladies. So be alert, girls. I may be calling you to come on back and share. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up for just your final words. One final word that you would like to leave us with. I think you guys are all able to mute yourself. So one final word, Monica.
Final word. You're already safe, and you're magnificent, and your humanity is beautiful, and really just remembering that.
Thank you. Thank you. Wendy, final words.
Yeah. Ditto, Monica. We're all, everyone is unique, and we are all here for a reason. We're all part of something bigger, and trust that and know that it's true and it's real.
Yeah. Thank you. Candace, final words.
I would say be soft. Be soft, be so soft and so gentle with yourself and with the world. In being soft and gentle, we are the leaf that goes effortlessly down the river, and we need that. We need that energy now. So.
And my final words are the words that I like to bring to every experience, and that is offering and inviting you to sit with yourself and share some wonderful words that are, I love you, to yourself. I am listening to yourself. And how can I help you? Those three words, those three phrases to yourself for an inner dialogue is what I offer up to you in support of this time. I love you. I am listening. And how can I support you? Love you guys. Thank you for coming on board with this. And thank you, attendees. See you guys next Wednesday, God willing. Have a nice evening. I love you. Good night. Thank you. Big hug.